Exodus chapter 23. He goes, look, as you harvest your crops, bring say the very best. The very best of the first, right, harvest to the house of the Lord your God. Now, look, leave that scripture up for a minute. Let's just dissect this here just for a second. Here's what God says. I want you to bring the best of the first, okay? You get the importance there. It's not the average of the second, it's the best. The part you go, I want to hang on to that. Like that's the most pure, like this is what people desire. I want you to bring that piece of the first harvest, not later on, not after you're secured, not after you got all your bills paid, not after you have everything planned out, not after you have enough money for retirement. First, before you do any of that, the first, I want you to bring the best of the first, and then he says, I got a place I want you to bring it. Where does he want you to bring it? House of the Lord. What do you think the house of the Lord is? The house of the Lord is the same house of the Lord that it is today, that it was then. It is the place where people come to worship, and it's the place where people come to sacrifice. That's what we're doing right now. The house of the Lord is where we are at. It's a place we come to worship together. And did you realize that every week when you give online or the bucket is passed and we give to the Lord, did you realize that we are making a sacrifice? Right there. Every week, we come to worship in the house of the Lord. And God says, I want you to bring the best of the first. So that should warrant a question in your mind right now. Every single one of you should be asking the exact same question. The best of the first. How much of the best of the first? How much? Because he didn't define it right there, did he? How much of the best of the first? Well, go to Leviticus chapter 27. And this is what he says. He goes, 1/10 of the produce of the land, whether grain from your fields or fruit from your trees, belongs to the Lord and must be set apart to him as holy. Bring the best of the first. Bring the 10% out of whatever it is that is your gain and your economy. For us today, it's a check. It gets deposited into our bank account, right? Some of us, we farm, okay, so we've got the grain. Some of us, it could have been go pick the fruit off the tree, right? Back in those days, that's what it was. But for us today, it operates differently. We have a currency. Bring the best of the first. Bring the 10% and make it holy. How do you make it holy? You bring it into the house of the Lord. That's how it becomes holy. It's God's first. We bring the 10%. We worship him with obedience. And that 10% helps us to honor God, to recognize it all came from you and it all belonged to you. So before some of you are thinking, and you come to your conclusion, well, that was Old Testament. That's not the way we live now. We live under grace today. Jesus gave his life on the cross. Before you come to that conclusion, you might want to listen to what Jesus has to say about tithing in Matthew chapter 23. When he was speaking to some religious leaders, he says, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens. You have 100, little mustard seeds, and you're giving the tithe, the 10%. But he says, but you ignore the more important aspect of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. Now, listen carefully. Then Jesus goes on and he says, you should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Basically, here's what Jesus is saying in modern day language. He goes, you should give the tithe, duh. But don't think that because you give the tithe, duh, like all of us should know that already. Don't think that just because you do that, you can get away with living however you want. Don't think that you can give your tithe and that is the only thing that you're going to do to please God. He goes, no, don't ever forget that you have to live the justice and the mercy and the love. Don't forget that. But duh, everybody should tithe. That's how he was driving it home. So I want to help you. I want to help you really observe what it is. What's the tithe really look like in our economy here? And so I'm going to ask my friends that are the worship team, right? They're going to also be my stagehands. And worship team, come on out here. Come on out here, guys. Let's move that right there. Bring me, the first items. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Electric guitar player. Awesome. Be careful with those fingers. We want you to play more worship. Okay. We brought some very important items out here first. 10 hockey pucks. Because, life revolves around hockey. Okay, so we got 9 of them. This is God's. We give God 1 of them, right? That would be a 10th. We got water. We got to live on water, right? So let's say we got paid in water. So we got We got our 10 jugs. We give God one of those jugs, right? And so then here's our 9 we get to live on. We get to manage, and we get to figure out how to be generous with those things. And here's what we're giving to God over here. Oh, and then we got backpacks. Yeah, let's just put those backpacks on here, man. All right, so we got backpacks that represent our education. If we got paid in backpacks, we would give the best of the first. Honey, is this the best of the first? Okay, the best of the first, and we give it to God, okay? And then, then we get some shoes, all right? Let's say we got paid in shoes, which would be very weird economy, kind of stinky. I don't want to even build out a fish. But let's say we got shoes. Then we would give the best of the first. Okay, the best of the first. Best of the first, we give it over there. Then we got these books, right? If we got paid in books, which, man, I got some friends that would love to be paid in books, right? And we would take the best of the first. There's no Bible in here. So let's use this one, the five dysfunctions of a team, okay? If you haven't read this book, it's a good one. We give the best of the first to God. Coffee, let's keep it all to ourselves. Okay, no, we'll give it to God. We'll give it to God. So we're going to give God, we got 10 coffees. So if we got paid in coffee, who would like to get paid in coffee, by the way? Wouldn't it be a simpler world if you just got paid in coffee? So we give God one. Oh, Chinese takeout. Yes, of course. So Chinese takeout, if that's how we got paid, all right, which would be a very weird world, but maybe we'd also eat like cantaloupe Kit Kats, then we would put one of them over here with God, okay? Stuff is just not going to stay on here, is it? Because there's an abundance of what God is blessing us with, so much that it's crazy. It's crazy what God does. Coats? Yeah, give me some of these coats. What kind of coat? We want a good one. We want a good one. Camouflage? No. North Face? Yes. All right, we'll take that one. North Face. We're going to put the rest of these coats just right up here. All right, just stack them on because we got paid in coats today. All right, we're in the coat business, and we got paid in coats, so we gave God one of the coats. All right, that belongs to God. Put the coffee out there so you can kind of see everything. All right, what else do we got? Oh, footballs, because, man, you can't, people in Nebraska want to get paid in footballs, and we'll give God one of the, but we got stuff falling off of our table because we have too much, but we're going to give God one of the best footballs that we have. We're going to give that to God. Is this thing over yet? Okay, food, right. Let's say we got paid in food. Guys, that'll never fit up there, so just put it all here. And this is God's because it's 1 out of 10. And now you're starting to get a really, really, really good picture of what your life looks like. Out of everything that God blesses you with, God goes, just worship me with a 10th. Out of it all, worship me with a 10th. Seems a bit ludicrous right now that we wouldn't do that. I think that's the reason why Jesus was kind of like, well, duh. That's what you do because it all came from God. And it all belongs to God. It was His. How could you ever think that you blessed yourself with everything that you have? It'd be like a father who takes his son to McDonald's and buys him some French fries, gets him all set up to eat the French fries, and as the son's eating the French fries, the father reaches in, right, for dad tax, takes a French fry, and the kid looks at the dad and says, hey, go buy your own fries. Now, at my table, that's when I just smile at my son and I reach over and I just take all the fries then. I will go buy your own. How quickly we forget who really blessed us. How quickly we forget. There's an abundance. The tithe is worship.